Hello, happy Sunday morning. I've come here into Kew Gardens, as I do 98% of the time when I pull this phone out to film, for a little bit of a walk. Crystal and Amelia have gone shopping. Yesterday, Saturday, I don't believe I filmed anything, so apologies if I did, but or rather apologies if I didn't, I suppose. We went round to Crystal's parents' house because it was Crystal's birthday, and we did presents and food, and Amelia had an absolute blast as always. On Friday we were in Guildford, which was great. We went out to the Ivy there. Beautiful sunny day, very cold though. I had to wander around the castle, wander around the town, trying to introduce Amelia to another place. Hopefully it's a place that will be very near to where we move to.
Welcome to another episode of Toby Stupid Vlog.
The reason I'm hedging my bets further and further on that statement is that we seem to be hitting constant roadblocks from our buyers of our flat in terms of requirements, and they're getting more and more tiresome and making the chance of us actually completing on our place in Bertham more and more difficult. I still obviously believe that there's a way through this, but my belief alone won't be sufficient. All the working parts have to action at the same time for this to happen. And the last piece, hopefully, oh my God, even saying that fills me with dread. The last piece of this puzzle hopefully will resolve at the start of next week, one way or the other. I just want this to be over, if I'm honest. By over I mean us booking a removals van and moving. It's been 4 months since we accepted an offer on our flat. We still haven't got a date, and that is ludicrous. And it's been 3 months since we had our offer accepted on the place we're buying, and that is all ready to go. Like, literally there's nothing to do. We're ready for exchange. We can't agree a date until we get our flipping flat completed, and it's very frustrating, and it has caused me to lose a great deal of sleep in the last week, and made me rather angry with all the people involved. So I'm hoping that there is a point in 7 days' time or so where all of that can subside a bit. So I've come here to my literal happy place to try and capture some sort of calming vibes, something slightly more zen. That's what I want for today, and I can go into next week with an energy level that is required to get this finally over the line. Good morning. Happy Monday. It is the day that I don't know whom, some media peer person sometime nicknamed Blue Monday. Supposedly the most depressing Monday of the year. I'm certainly not feeling great, but there's things you can do about it. Let's put it that way. One of them is go for a lovely walk on one of the most beautiful days of the year so far. It's sunny and bright and cold, and this is Richmond Park. My plan today is to do one lap clockwise of Richmond Park. I don't know how far that is. I don't know how long it will take, and I genuinely don't remember the last time I did a full lap. Training for the Shine walk was the last time I know for sure that we did it, and I might not have done it since, and that was 2013? So yeah, it's been a while, but why not today was my thinking. So let's see how it goes. I mean, very shortly there's no backing out because I'll be on the other side of the park, so but yeah, I don't imagine it's going to take more than a couple of hours. Richmond Park is kind of shaped like a wonky triangle once you take out the golf course, and on that basis I sort of parked at the top of the triangle. I walked down the right hand side to the bottom corner, and now I'm doing the bottom of the triangle. Now it's wonky because the sides aren't straight, but also the bottom edge of this triangle is the longest by quite a way. So once I've done this bit, which I'm on at the moment, I will be, you know, more than 2/3 of the way around. It's probably the best way of putting it, but that doesn't take into account the fact there are a couple of significant hills, and this is one of them, which I've got to overcome first. So I started by Sheen Gate, which is obviously on the edge of Sheen, and came past Roehampton Gate and then round to the next gate, which is not for cars, but is on the A3 basically, and then you come round past where is it, I guess Kingston Hill, Norbiton probably really, and then this is Kingston Gate that I've just passed, and I'm now walking north again. Now the advantage of walking north is it's the first bit of this walk I haven't had the sun in my eyes, so that's very, very pleasant. And I'm now on the return leg, certainly, so I'm on the second half of this walk. It might not take more than 2 hours based on performance so far, but we'll see. Right, I've done the 2 long sides. I've just passed Richmond Hill Gate, and I'm now walking back along the last curve, really, back to Sheen Gate. I've got to go past another couple of gates on the left on the way. No, all pedestrian gates, I should add, so that's the last entrance for cars until I get back to mine. This bit goes a bit up and down again. Here we go, we're pretty much back at the original car park. So 2 hours was my estimate. The reality is it was probably more like 2 hours 25 really. There were some bits where I was taking it easy, frankly, but still, I don't think I would have done it in 2. I just wanted to put this on record to remind myself in the future, I don't want to ever sell a house again. Never. I can say unequivocally that the last 6 weeks of my life have been the most stressful 6 weeks of the 41, nearly 42 years I've been alive. It is excruciating. That's the only way to describe it. And if I buy another house in my life, I will not be selling the previous one, because it is not worth the trouble. If that means I need to earn another £500,000, then that is going to have to be the case, because this is ridiculous and I can't go through this again. Look at the optimism of this tree. I love it. There's always one on this road every year. And this year, January the, 18th today, it's in full bloom. Like it's spring. In fact, it's even lost some of the blossom already. It's remarkable and it's beautiful, and it's so nice to see such a thing, even if it is, you know, ridiculous in terms of timing. Hi, afternoon. Last 7 days have been quite stressful, and I touched on it before without going into the details around the nuances of selling a leasehold property. It's suffice to say that there's been a fair amount of miscommunication and misunderstanding, and solicitors not being very good. At such time as this completes, I will be naming and shaming all the solicitors involved, because I really don't think you should use them. However, I feel like as of today, with a lot of heavy lifting, I've managed to move this process forward. Yesterday evening, I would have given the chance of this working if I'd been asked, and I'm glad I was not. I would have given it a 50-50 chance at best. It didn't feel, I certainly did not feel very hopeful. I then had a conversation this morning that made me feel like it was actually about a 30% chance of success. But right now I would suggest that my feeling is we're at about 75%. Well, you know, that's not 100, and there's no denying that, but if we consider where we have been over the last week, it feels like a massive victory. And it's not done, but it's moved forward. And I have been so stressed in the last week. I have not slept properly at all. I've slept terribly, actually, and that meant that I've had very sort of a short temper, frankly, a short fuse, especially when it comes to Amelia playing silly buggers, which is, you know, a favourite game of every 2-year-old. So yeah, it's been difficult. I feel at least hopeful, if not victorious today, and it's such a relief to actually feel something that isn't just sadness. It's just felt so bad this week. I was, at one point, I sort of oscillated between being convinced this was going to collapse and convinced people would see good sense. Neither of those things have happened, but we have nonetheless found a way forward. In amongst all that, I have actually managed to do a little bit of work, which is miraculous, because I have felt sick to the stomach most times and just so demotivated, and sitting waiting with nothing to do for people to ring you who don't ring you is just frustrating beyond words. I'm not someone who can do nothing unwillingly. My idea of doing nothing, for example, is sitting and learning a language, or snorkeling in the sea. It's not quite nothing, it's just a place where I can turn off a large part of my brain, and that's how I relax. Sleeping is, I suppose, doing nothing, but I haven't been doing any of that. So yeah, it's been very, very tough. And if we do get through this and to the other side, and this does complete and we do move into this house, I can't begin to describe to you the feeling of elation I will feel. It will be such an emotional release of energy. I dare say I will be probably ill. It's the only way I can describe it. Probably sick. Bring on the sickness. As a last release of negative energy, can we briefly talk about the absolute shit show that is the government at the moment? So as of this date, right now, we have not had the acclaimed report from Sue Gray on the Downing Street parties. If the report is damning, that will be a huge amazement to me, because the terms of reference it was given in order to conduct the report doesn't allow it to do many major things. It doesn't allow it, for example, to conclude that any criminal activity took place. It doesn't allow it to conclude whether the Prime Minister has lied to Parliament. It merely sets out to conclude whether or not there was a party, as opposed to a work event, on various dates in various locations around Downing Street. That much we already know. Nonetheless, we're waiting for a report to tell us that. In the meantime, several MPs, probably very close to 50, have sent letters of no confidence in the Prime Minister, which could trigger a leadership contest. One MP has defected to the Labour Party this morning, and another MP, not a man I particularly hold in high regard, but a man who at least has a very clear set of standards that he lays out with some regularity, David Davis. He's also an egomaniac. He's a man who resigned to hold a by-election on an issue that even him winning had no effect on. But he has very clear ideas about what the behaviour he expects from other MPs. Has told the Prime Minister that he needs to resign publicly in the House of Commons from the Conservative backbenches. Great fun to watch, not very helpful. Anyway, so that's where we are. What I can tell you definitively is that Boris Johnson is a liar, that Boris Johnson is incredibly lazy, that despite holding the office of Prime Minister, he's not doing the job of Prime Minister. He's an untrustworthy man. He does not keep to his word. And he inherently doesn't want to do anything unless it furthers him as an individual. All of those things are matters of record. All of those things are things I've heard firsthand from people who have worked with him or for him. So, that is not in question. What is dumbfounding is that people would choose to elect him in the first place. Were there an election today, they most certainly would not. Sometimes you need to see how terrible the thing is to choose not to have the thing anymore. Anyway, that's about the end of it. Aside to say that is the nicest thing I will ever say about Boris Johnson. By the time you view this, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Part of me hopes that he manages to hold on to power because he is such a poison chalice. They deserve him. What my honest feeling about him is, and I've said this before, my great sadness is that the worst thing that will happen to him in his miserable existence is that he will lose power. I think he deserves far worse than that. I think at a minimum he deserves to be in prison. There are so many crimes on his watch. There were all sorts of election crimes during the referendum that he's gone unpunished for. There was Russian interference in the general election that has never been properly dealt with, and he has now committed at least 3 or 4 criminal offences under the Health Protection Act. He should be in prison. He needs to actually understand that there are consequences for his actions. He does not understand that. But honestly, given the chance, I think he needs to be publicly beaten. That's actually what I believe. I don't think anyone's ever given him a proper slap, reminded him of his place in the world. But, failing that, I'll take a prison sentence for him. So, anyway, that's the end of that. It's given me great joy to see him suffering even minor consequences, even trivial ones, because he just doesn't understand why he would. But look at the sunset though. Isn't that remarkable? Isn't nature just the truly greatest antidote to everything?